starting. Yeah, started.
Om Yo Brahmanam Vidadhati Purvam Yo Vai Vedamscha Prahinoti Tasmai Tamhadevam Atma Buddhi Prakasham Mumukshurvai Sharanamaham Prapadye Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Gurave Sarvalokanam Bhishajye Bhavaroginam Nidhaye Sarvavidyanam Sri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Okay, so for the last 3 weeks, we have been seeing a set of virtues, or what we call Vedanta friendly qualities that one is encouraged to develop. And we first saw from the Bhagavad Gita 13th chapter, where some 20 virtues were listed in the name of Jnanam. And then later we also saw some 26 virtues which were listed in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita under the title Daivi Sampat. And then last week, towards the end, we also briefly covered the 10 qualities listed under Yama Niyama of the Ashtanga Yoga, Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga. So I thought I'll just take a short break from those virtues and speak a little bit about the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so there was one lady in the group who specifically asked for covering Bhagavad Gita at a summary level. I don't know if she's logged in today or not. I hope she logs in. So today I thought I will cover the 12th chapter. So was that you, Shwetambriji? You had asked me for Bhagavad Gita, right?
Yes, sir. I had asked for it.
Okay, great. So you're there. I'm so happy. So we will see the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita briefly. I don't want to go to a say shloka by shloka, word by word explanation, which will take about 6-7 hours if I do it properly. And instead, what I'll do is I will give you a summary in general and see if I can go to some specific shlokas where it is relevant or where I think it is necessary. So the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called the Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga, and it's a relatively small chapter. There are two very small chapters in Bhagavad Gita, which is the 12th and the 15th chapter. They both have just 20 shlokas. The entire Bhagavad Gita has 701 shlokas. And the biggest chapter is the 18th chapter, which has 78 shlokas. Then the next biggest is the second chapter with 72. And the next biggest after that is the 11th chapter with 55, and so on. The smallest chapters are 12 and 15. Both of them have just 20 shlokas. So if you actually memorize the 12th chapter and you recite it with a good fluency, you can do it in 2 to 3 minutes. So it's that small. Okay, but it's a very densely packed and tersely a very tersely stuffed chapter with a lot of lessons or a lot of teachings in it. So the 12th chapter can be broadly divided into two sections. The first 12 shlokas deal with the Bhakti Yoga itself, and the next 8 shlokas deal with what is called the Phalashruti, or what is the benefit that one will enjoy if one has followed the Bhakti Yoga properly. Yeah, so it is 2 sections, and the first 12 shlokas itself have some 3 or 4 small sections. Like initially, it begins with a question from Arjuna, and then Bhagavan answers the question in about 3 shlokas, and then he goes on to talk in detail about Bhakti Yoga itself. And finally, there is one summarizing shloka where he says there is some comparative, he compares a few sadhanas and say this is better than that and so on. Okay, that's the 12th shloka. Okay, so basically, Arjuna begins the chapter with a question, and that question is related to what he learnt in the 11th chapter. So it's a sort of a continuation from the 11th chapter. Arjuna has this question. In the 11th chapter, Krishna explains or shows him the Vishwarupa. The Vishwarupa, basically, the Vishwarupa means the universe, or I'll put it the other way, Bhagavan appearing as the universe. The Lord Ishvara himself appears as the universe, but when we look at the universe, we don't perceive the Ishvara behind the universe. We just look at the universe as though it's a material universe, but really speaking, the material universe, actually is an appearance of the Ishvara. And so, in the 11th chapter, Arjuna is given a temporary power to appreciate the fact that this universe is none other than the Ishvara himself. And so from that experience, Arjuna starts the 12th chapter with the question, hey Krishna, there are people who worship you in your saguna form. When we say saguna, it means a form with lot of attributes. Guna means attribute or qualities. So you can worship the Ishvara with lot of attributes and qualities. Okay, you give it a form, and then you give it certain attributes like kindness and sarva shaktiman, sarvajñatvam, and all those things. Okay, so those are all the attributes. Just to say a few, there are a lot of attributes. Okay, so that is a saguna form. So all the normal worships that we do in the Sanatana Dharma Hindu culture, they are all saguna worship. Whether you are worshipping Rama or Krishna or Ganesha or Durga or Devi or Shiva or any other form, all of that is saguna worship. So he says there are people who worship you in your saguna form, and then there are people who worship you in your nirguna form. Who is the better of the two? So that is the question Arjuna poses. Evam satata yuktaye bhaktastvam paryupasate echapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. That's the question. That's the first shloka. So, evam satata yukta ye bhaktaha tvam paryupasate. The satata yuktaha is actually a reference to the satata yuktaha. So, satatam means always, permanently. So, all those who are focused on you, who meditate upon you in your saguna form. And then the second line talks about the nirguna worshippers, and he wants a comparison. So, which is superior? Because whichever devotee is superior, the inference is that form of Ishvara is superior. Okay, and then Krishna gives an answer which is a little funny, because he says in the next shloka that the saguna worshippers are, in my view, the better ones, but the nirguna worshippers attain me. Okay, so it's a very funny answer. Funny because he does not say that the nirguna worshippers are inferior, because if the nirguna worshippers are going to attain the Lord, then they must be at least as superior as the saguna worshipper. Okay, so the hidden message in that answer is that the comparison itself is wrong. Because if you are a Saguna worshipper, but you do not graduate to Nirguna worship at some point, then that Saguna worship is meaningless. And you cannot directly go to Nirguna worship without having gone through the Saguna worship. So there is actually no choice. One has to go through both Saguna worship and Nirguna worship. And that Nirguna worship is actually nothing but Jnana Yoga. What Krishna calls Nirguna worship in the third and fourth shlokas is basically nothing but Jnana Yoga. So the message there is the Nirguna worship, which is essentially Jnana Yoga, is not possible without having gone through Saguna worship. So it is a journey. And in that journey, Nirguna worship has its role as it is the ultimate moksha karanam. Without jnanam, without having gone through Jnana Yoga, one cannot become liberated. But in order to come to Jnana Yoga, one has to go through Saguna worship, which is an essential prerequisite, so to say, or it's more like a foundation. And with that brief answer to Arjuna's question, Krishna goes on to elaborate a little more on the bhakti part. And the important point to note from the 12th chapter is the term bhakti, or the bhakti yoga that the 12th chapter talks about is not a specific sadhana, but it is a combination of a few sadhanas. So the word bhakti, even though in normal language, in normal practice, we use the term bhakti for the process that we adopt either in a temple or at home, where we offer flowers, we offer agarbatti and karpura, and we offer some naivedyam, so we offer some abhishekam, all those things. So that is what we consider bhakti, or we chant some prayers, shlokas. We consider all of that to be bhakti. So basically, thinking about the Lord in a particular form, and developing faith and all that. That is how we use the term bhakti. But in the strict Vedantic sense, bhakti yoga consists of a few important other sadhanas, which put together is called bhakti yoga in the context of the 12th chapter. So what are these other sadhanas which together constitute bhakti yoga? So the 12th chapter divides this journey, or divides this travel, into 5 steps. The highest step there is the Jnana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga is basically the consistent and systematic study of the Vedantic scriptures under the guidance of a traditional acharya, I would say traditional living acharya, and the study has to go on for a length of time, a substantial length of time. That is the common definition of Jnana Yoga, which we divide as Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Okay, so but in 12th chapter, Krishna clubs Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam into one step and says this is Jnana Yoga, this is the final step. And before Jnana Yoga, Krishna expects the sadhaka to have performed Saguna Ishvara Upasana. And this Saguna Ishvara Upasana itself he classifies into Ekarupa Ishvara Upasana and Vishwarupa Ishvara Upasana. So when we say Ekarupa Ishvara Upasana, it is nothing but Ishta Devata Upasana, and which is what most of us do. What most of us do is we have one or maybe two Ishta Devatas, or sometimes more Ishta Devatas. We worship Vinayaka, we worship Narayana, we worship Lakshmi, Saraswati, Durga, Devi, Rama, Krishna, Shiva. So any of you can have any number of Ishta Devatas, and performing puja or worshipping that Ishta Devata in one form. Yeah, so Vinayaka is one form. Vinayaka is not Rama, Vinayaka is not Krishna. So Krishna is one form, Rama is one form, Shiva is one form. Like that, you stick to one form. So you think of Ishvara as a particular form and continue to worship. That is Eka Rupa Ishvara. But you have to then expand your outlook, expand your mind, and start learning to look at this entire universe as Ishvara. That is the teaching of the 11th chapter. So when you have done Ekarupa Ishvara for a certain length of time, you develop a certain maturity to look at this entire universe, entire world as a manifestation of Ishvara. That is Aneka Rupa or Vishwarupa Ishvara. Okay, and that is where in the Hindu system we have this tradition of considering mountains as divine, or considering rivers as divine, or considering trees and plants as divine. You can worship tulasi tree, tulasi plant, or you can worship the Vatavriksha, the banyan tree. Yeah, so we have all these traditions. So all these come from the practice of having the Vishwarupa Upasana at the back of it. Okay, so when somebody goes to say Tiruvannamalai or Kailash and performs a Giri Pradakshinam of Tiruvannamalai, Tiruvannamalai is a town in Tamil Nadu which has this famous Arunachaleshwara temple. Yeah, there the tradition is there is a hill and people go around the hill because that hill itself is supposed to be the manifestation of Lord Shiva. So when you go around the hill as a pradakshinam, it is called Giri Valam. In Tamil, the word Valam means pradakshinam. So Giri Pradakshinam or Giri Valam, if you do, you are supposed to have done a pradakshinam of Lord Shiva himself. Or when people go to Kailash, Mount Kailash, that's also a pilgrimage to appreciate Shiva in the form of Mount Kailash. Okay, or people go to Ganga and perform Ganga Arati. Okay, and so you have a lot of these Pushkar festivals where in the south we have Kaveri Pushkaram or Tamraparni Pushkaram. These are all festivals where the river is worshipped. So these are all manifestations of Vishwarupa Ishvara Upasana. Okay, so you have Saguna Ishvara Upasana, which has Ekarupa Ishvara Upasana, then Vishwarupa Ishvara Upasana. That is step 4 and 3. And let's say somebody is not able to focus their mind and sit for 10, 15, 20 minutes in meditation on either the Ekarupa Ishvara or the Vishwarupa Ishvara. Let's say the person is very extroverted. Then Krishna says you can be busy with your worldly activities, that is performing karma. And that karma also he divides into 2 stages of karma. In the slightly superior phase of karma, he says you do karma yoga, which he calls, in this context, he calls it as nishkama karma. Nishkama karma is performing your karma without having an attachment to the outcome, which we discussed in the earlier sessions. We called it karma yoga. And if a person cannot even perform karma yoga, he says you perform kamya karma. You pursue your desires, you perform karma, but stick to dharma and work towards achieving your desires. But there is a caveat. Once you are successful in attaining the result that you had desired, don't claim credit for that result. Don't say it is because of my effort. Dedicate it to Ishvara by saying, this is Ishvara Prasada. Even though I worked for it, it is the God's gift that made this possible. So I dedicate this to the Lord. So if one can do Kamya Karma in that attitude, that is accepted as some kind of a karma yoga itself, even though your motive for performing that action is actually your desire, the fact that you ultimately dedicate the outcome and the result to Ishvara and treat the outcome as an Ishvara prasada, this Kamya karma somehow gets the status of Nishkamya karma. So these are the 5 stages. So you begin with the lowest point of Kamya karma but dedication to Ishvara. Then you graduate to Nishkamya karma, which we call Karma Yoga. From there, you graduate to Ekarupa Ishvara Upasana. And from there, you graduate to Vishwarupa Ishvara Upasana. And finally, you become qualified for Jnana Yoga. Then you enter Jnana Yoga. And there you perform Sravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Finally, you become a Jnani and you are then liberated. So, this is the roadmap that Krishna gives in the 12th chapter under the title of Bhakti Yoga. So this is covered until shloka number 11. And in the 12th shloka, he gives some kind of a comparison between 3 or 4 sadhanas. Okay. So that 12th shloka reads like this. Shreyo hi jnanam abhyasat jnanat dhyanam visishyate dhyanat karma phalatyagaha tyagat shanti ranantaram. That's the shloka. So there, the word abhyasa has a very specific meaning. The word abhyasa there means performing karma, but without, I would say not performing karma, it is performing upasana. So the word abhyasa in the 12th shloka means you are performing upasana of devata, but without having a true understanding or jnanam of what you are doing, why you are doing, and all that. That is abhyasa. Then shreyohi jnanam. Jnanam here means you know, you have gone through the scriptures, Puranas, Vedanta, you know what the truth is. You have understood what is Ishvara, and that is jnanam, but then you do not perform any dhyanam or upasana. So it is just jnanam without upasana. Abhyasa is just upasana without jnanam. And then the next dhyanam that he talks about is a combination of these two. So you are also performing dhyanam and you are also knowledgeable about the upasana that you are performing, that is dhyanam. And then karma phala tyagaha is nothing but the step 1 where you have a kamya karma, you pursue the result but dedicate it to Ishvara. Okay, so in this shloka, Krishna actually plays a trick. In the first 11 shlokas, what we understood is that kamya karma and dedicating to the Lord is actually the lowermost step, step 1. But in the 12th shloka, he just reverses the whole thing and says that performing that first step is superior to everything else. So how you have to interpret that is, it is called Arthavada. In Arthavada, in the Vedantic terms, the word Arthavada means glorification. Glorification for the sake of glorification. It doesn't mean that the other things are inferior, but it is to kind of encourage people who are in step 1 that don't feel any inferiority complex. You are still in a good shape. If you keep performing this, you will make progress along the stated roadmap. So that is the encouragement he wants to give. That is why in the 12th shloka he puts this karma para tyaga as a superior virtue, compared to even upasana or jnanam or the combination of both. So that is something you have to take with a pinch of salt. It doesn't really literally mean that. Okay, so that is the first 12 shlokas which talks about the karma, the bhakti yoga itself. And from the 13th to 20th shloka, we have a series of virtues. So I'll read some of these virtues and explain to you what it means. So 13th shloka says, Adveshta sarvabhutanam maitraha karuna evacha nirmamo nirahankaraha samadukha sukha kshami. Okay, so Adveshta means one who is free from hatred. That is Sarva Bhutanam. You have no hatred towards anything. And this is actually what we saw in the 16th chapter as, what was that? There was a 16th chapter virtue, which is exactly the same, but in different words. Yeah. Daya Bhuteshu. That Daya Bhuteshu of the 16th chapter is Adveshta Sarva Bhutanam of the 12th chapter. Okay. Then Maitraha Karuna Evacha. Okay. That Sarva Bhutanam should be added to everything. Sarva Bhutanam Maitraha, Sarva Bhutanam Karuna. So that is exactly the Daya Bhuteshu. You be compassionate to everything, all living and even non-living things. Then Nirmamaha. Nirmamaha, also something that we have seen. Nirmamaha, Nirahankaraha is what we saw as Amanitvam, Adambhitvam, and Anahankaraha. That Anahankaraha of the which chapter was the 13th chapter? Anahankaraha of the 13th chapter is Nirahankaraha here. Then Samadukha Sukha Kshami. Samadukha Sukha means you are equanimous in your ups and downs, whether happiness, when happy events occur or unhappy or sorrowful events occur, you don't lose your mental balance. That is Samadukha Sukha. Then Kshami. Kshami is nothing but one who has Kshama. And Kshama also, we have seen Kshanti of the 13th chapter, and Kshama itself in the 16th chapter we saw. So these are all qualities. As I said, before you come to Vedanta, you have to develop these qualities deliberately. But once you have gone through Vedanta and once you are a jnani, these qualities become one's second nature. Okay, you don't have to display any effort to bring out these qualities. These qualities become a part of your nature. That is the difference. So even though these qualities were discussed in the 13th and 16th chapters as some kind of a prerequisite for Vedanta, these qualities will continue to be with the sadhaka even after he becomes a jnani and he becomes more and more comfortable displaying these qualities. That is how we have to understand. Then Santushtaha Satatam. Santushtaha Satatam means he must be satisfied all the time, and that is what we saw in the last week towards the end under the Yama Niyama as Santoshaha. Santoshaha is a very important characteristic which in today's world is missing from most people. We are all taught from early childhood that we have to be ambitious, we have to be go-getters, and especially in the corporate world, if you are happy with what you have, you are considered to be some kind of a loser. But in the Vedantic tradition, we actually say that if you harbor a sense of satisfaction, it's actually a very healthy thing. You can still go and achieve a lot, but you are not achieving lot, not because you are dissatisfied with yourself. In spite of having purnatvam, you want to be of use, or you want to contribute to society. By doing that, you are achieving. So you can still achieve by having a lot of contentment. Contentment is santosha, and that santosha is a virtue which we have to cultivate, especially in today's world, where we are always looking for what is missing, what can we earn more, what can we get more. We thereby increase our material possessions, and we are always working for the next 1 million or 100,000 or whatever. Yeah. So exact contrary to that is santosha. We hear it is santushtaha. Then yatatma dridhanishchaya. Yatatma dridhanishchaya. Yatatma here means one who is constantly striving. Yataha means yatnam, effort. So you are always having some activity to keep you busy. Again, that activity is not for fulfilling your desires. That activity is more to serve the society. So when a jnani is working, he's not working for his own betterment. He's working to serve others. So in that sense, there are active jnanis who are very active in society for the betterment of society. So that yatatma here refers to those kind of active people. And dridha means one who is very clear in his decision, and he pursues whatever he is pursuing, no matter what others are saying. And that also we covered in the 13th chapter list and 16th chapter list. We saw Thyrium in one list. In one list we saw Thyrium, and the other list, just a minute, I'll take out that paper. So Sthairiam Atma Vinigraha was the 13th chapter, Sthairiam. And what was the 16th chapter one? Dhritihi. Yeah. So Dhritihi and Sthairiam is here Dridanischaya. Then Mayarpita Manobuddhihi. That Mayarpita Manobuddhihi is the Ishvara Pranidhanam of the Yamaniyama list, which means basically you are always meditating upon the Lord, upon Ishvara. That is Mayarpita Manobuddhihi Yo Madbhaktaha Same Priyaha. So all these shlokas you will find the word Same Priyaha. Same Priyaha means that person is dear to me. That person is dear to me. So that is the meaning. Yeah. Then Anapekshaha Shuchir Daksha Udasino Gatavyatha. Okay, Shuchihi Daksha. Shuchi we also saw in the earlier chapters. Shaucham. The word Shaucham is here referred as Shuchihi. The word Dakshaha means being efficient. The word Dakshaha means being efficient, and it's probably a unique virtue which has not been covered in any of the earlier lists. Maybe Tejaha. Tejaha can come close to the Dakshaha, but they have a slightly different meaning. So, as I said, Dakshaha means one who is efficient. Then Udasinaha. Udasinaha means Samachittatvam. This is the Samachittatvam of the 13th chapter. Samachittatvam comes somewhere towards the end. Okay. Then Gatavyathaha. Gatavyathaha means one who has overcome pain. That means it is about the virtue through which you acquire through tapaha. When you have done a lot of tapas, you are able to withstand pain and all that, which I also talked about. Like when you deal with others, you are very soft. When others deal with you, you are able to take it like a diamond. You are hard like a diamond. So that aspect here is gatavyatha. Okay. Then yona hrishyati na dveshti na shochati na kankshati shubha shubha parityagi bhaktimanya samepriya. So yona hrishyati na dveshti na shochati na kankshati means you are free from all emotional turbulence. Hrishyati means to jump up and down in joy. Okay, dveshti is one who's filled with hatred. Shochati is one who's filled up with worry or guilt. Okay, na kankshati. Kankshati means one who's always desirous of something. So this person has overcome desire, overcome hatred, and he is able to keep his mental balance no matter what happens. So all those qualities are here appreciated. Then quite similar virtues like Shitoshna Sukha Dukkeshu Samaha. Shitoshna Sukha Dukkeshu Samaha is the same thing. When if it is cold or hot, you don't make a big fuss about it. You kind of adjust to it and accept it. Then Sangha Vivarjitaha, we saw in the 13th chapter, Vivikta Desha Sevitvam, then Aratir Jana Samsadi. Those two virtues here he is listing as Sangha Vivarjitaha. Then Santushtaha comes again. Okay. Stiramatihi Sthairyaha. Okay, so all these are virtues which we have kind of more or less covered in the earlier set of virtues from the 13th chapter or 16th chapter, or from the Yama Niyama list of the 6th chapter. Okay, so that completes the quick overview of the 12th chapter. And if you have any questions to discuss, we can talk. Hmm. Silence as usual. Okay, can we close the call and go home?
Yeah, Vasu it's clear for me.
Very good. Okay, so no questions. Then, okay, we have a good 20 minutes. So do we do anything, or do we close the call for today? I mean, if interested, I can carry on with some more Bhagavad Gita chapters. Even though I have not come prepared, I can still talk for 20 minutes to cover the time, and maybe go to the 6th chapter where Dhyana Yoga is listed. Yeah, can we do the 6th chapter, which is Dhyana Yoga? Yeah. So a lot of
Fine.
thumbs ups are going. So I
Yes.
believe that's okay for me. So the 6th chapter is called Dhyana Yoga, and in some books it is also called Atma Samyama Yoga. And basically, in the 6th chapter, the conversation or the teaching from Krishna is on how to conduct or how to perform meditation. Okay? So it is a chapter that deals more or less with meditation for the first 32 shlokas, and then after that there are some question answer conversations between Krishna and Arjuna, which is not exactly connected to dhyanam itself, slightly related to dhyanam, but it also covers a few other questions from Arjuna. So the first 32 shlokas are essentially dhyana yoga. That is the dhyana yoga, and then there are some additional shlokas which go on for another 15 shlokas. 15? Yeah, I think 15. Because the chapter has 47 shlokas. So if I subtract 32 from 47, it must be 15 shlokas. Okay. So Krishna actually begins the chapter by saying that a real sannyasi is not someone who leaves everything and goes to the forest and gives up all activities, but a real sannyasi is one who is actively working in the society and doing karma yoga. Okay, so this is actually a blatant violation of the traditional definition of sannyasa. But then you will see Krishna repeating the exact same thing in the 18th chapter also. Okay, and he is doing it on purpose because in the battlefield, Arjuna is asking Krishna repeatedly to talk about sannyasa, because Arjuna thinks that if at some point Krishna glorifies sannyasa and says that sannyasa is good, he will take it as a permission to quit the battlefield and run away to the forest. Because in the first chapter, Arjuna had developed cold feet. And why did he develop cold feet? He developed cold feet because when he was inspecting the army of Kauravas, he also saw Bhishma and Drona as part of the army, and then it suddenly struck him. Yes, ma'am. Subhashini, ma'am, you have a question. Please unmute yourself.
Sorry, sir. It is just popping. Is it okay if I can ask now, or I can wait and ask at the end?
Yeah, you can ask. Not a problem. Tell me, what is it?
Okay, because you explained in chapter 12 about the steps in how we have to take God as Saguna, Nirguna.
Hmm.
Is there anywhere in Gita told how Arjuna actually picked his answer?
Is there anywhere in Gita how Arjuna picked his
Picked his
answer?
answer. Where he is standing now actually? Did he pick the fourth and fifth, third and fourth of Saguna Brahma in his worship, or did he go to the Nirguna?
No. See, Arjuna is receiving this teaching as it comes. You know, this whole Bhagavad Gita was not a planned teaching by Krishna, right? So Krishna did not come to the battlefield with the idea of teaching Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. It all happened spontaneously because Arjuna was supposed to start the war, but instead of starting the war, he dropped the bow and arrow and said, I won't fight. And that happened in the first chapter. And that happened because he did not want to kill Bhishma and Drona. So it kind of emotionally overwhelmed him. The thought that this battle is going to end up seeing Bhishma and Drona getting killed. And he didn't want that. So he said, I will not fight. Let me go to the forest and become a sannyasi. So when Krishna was listening to Bhagavad Gita until chapter 11, he was simply absorbing the teaching coming from Krishna on the flow, but he himself did not have any particular view of Ishvara this way or that way. But at the end of the 11th chapter, he was actually greatly overwhelmed by the knowledge that the Krishna that he thought until this day to be his friend and relative is actually the all powerful Ishvara. That is the shocking new learning that Arjuna gets in the 11th chapter, and so he's still reeling under that shock. He's still under that emotional, overwhelmed situation. So the question that he asks at the beginning of the 12th chapter comes more from that emotional state of the mind. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Right.
Thank you.
So going back to the 6th chapter, so Arjuna thought, if Krishna somehow glorifies sannyasa, he will quit and go to the forest. But Krishna doesn't want that to happen. Krishna wants Arjuna to fight. So Krishna is bending the definition of sannyasa to tell Arjuna that doing your duty is the most important virtue that you can think of at this moment. And the sannyasa that you have in mind is inferior to performing your duty. So that is the background to why Krishna says that the real sannyasi is one who is performing karma yoga. So the first two shlokas reflect that teaching. Anashtritaha karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha sa sannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriyaha. So the word niragni and akriyaha means a traditional sannyasi, because a traditional sannyasi is not supposed to have anything to do with fire. Even the ritualistic fire they have to give up. Even the cooking fire they have to give up. A sannyasi cannot cook his own food, because for a sannyasi, Agni is banned. So they are called Niragni. And they have to give up all worldly activities. So they are Akriya. And so Anashtritaha karma phalam karoti yaha. Karyam karma. So whoever performs his duty without getting attached to the fruit. Karma phalam anashritaha means one who has not attached himself to the result of the karma. That is the true sannyasi. Yes, Shubhu ma'am.
Could you please explain why Agni is banned for the true sannyasi?
See, in the tradition, Agni represents rituals. Agni represents rituals, and the rituals are the duty of grihasthas. The family householder grihastha has the sole right to perform rituals. The brahmachari can only perform very limited rituals. The vanaprastha and sannyasi cannot perform any rituals. Only the grihastha has to perform rituals. So the very act of sannyasa in those days, I mean not today. Today everybody has given up karma, so I can say everybody is sannyasi in that sense. But in the true traditional definition of sannyasa, it is the formal renunciation of karma. Okay, that is the reason why fire is not allowed.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, second shloka says, Yam sanyasamiti prahuhu yogam tam vidhi pandava nahya sanyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. So, what is known as sannyasa, you please understand, hey Arjuna, you understand that it is nothing but karma yoga. Yam sannyasam iti prahuhu yogam, here the word yogam means karma yoga. Yogam tam vidhi pandava nahya sanyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. So, nahi asanyasta sankalpaha yogi bhavati kaschana. So the word asanyasta sankalpaha means one who has not given up attachment to the result. That is again a mark of karma yoga, karma yogi. Okay, and then from there he switches to the meditation part, and in between there are some shlokas where he talks about how the mind is a very important tool in a person's personality, and that he says in the fifth shloka, Uddhared Atman Atmanam Natmanam Avasadet Atmaiva Hyatmano Bandhu Atmaiva Ripuratmana. The word Atma in this shloka refers to the mind. It is not the Sachidananda Atma. The Atma in this shloka actually is a reference to the mind, and he says that your mind can be your friend or it can be your worst enemy, depending upon how you train the mind and use the mind. And this is the foundation for why he talks about dhyanam, because ultimately dhyanam or meditation is an effort to control your mind and direct it in a particular direction. So if you are not used to meditating, your mind will wander all over the place when you sit for performing meditation. So one of the very first things that one has to learn when you start meditation is to how to arrest this wandering nature of the mind and make it focus on one particular object. That itself is a very important capability that one should develop, and that is done through different exercises. But here the meditation that Krishna talks about is very specifically the Vedantic meditation. Okay, so what is the Vedantic meditation? The Vedantic meditation, in other words, is also what we call Nididhyasanam. And in Nididhyasanam, the meditator takes one or more sentences which contain the Vedantic teaching and focuses the mind on those sentences so that the Vedantic teaching gets more and more embedded in the mind, more and more reinforced in the mind, and it sort of becomes one's second nature. So unlike in the other types of meditation, so for instance in the Patanjali Yoga meditation, the focus is to keep the mind blank. There the objective is not to repeat any Vedantic teaching. In the Patanjali school of meditation, the meditator is supposed to work for a blank mind and keep the mind blank for as long as possible, which is what the later steps of Ashtanga Yoga called Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Those steps are actually the act of bringing the extroverted mind more and more inward, holding it in one blank state and continuing that blank state of the mind. That is Patanjali style meditation, but in Vedanta, we don't do that. And then there are other Nama Japa meditations are there. You repeat the mantra like Om Namah Shivaya or Om Namo Narayana or Om Namo Ganeshaya, whatever mantra you might want. You keep repeating that mantra. That is also a mantra Japa meditation. That is also not we are talking about here. Okay. And then there are other people who meditate on a particular form. Okay, so let's say you are a Krishna worshipper or Rama worshipper. So you want to bring the image of Krishna or Rama in front of your eyes in the mind, and you want to keep that image steadily in your mind for a long time. That is also one style of meditation, and we are not talking about that meditation also here. We are talking about a Vedantic meditation. So in the Vedantic meditation, typically the mantras that are used are typically like Aham Brahmasmi or Tat Tvamasi, Prajnanam Brahma. All these Vedantic Vakyas are there, or there are specific Nididhyasana shlokas. Like Shankaracharya has written one Nirvana Shatkam. It begins like, Mano Buddhyahankara Chittani Naham, Nacha Shrotra Jihve, Nacha Grana Netre. And so on. Yeah, it's a 6 shloka thing, and it is basically negating I am not my mind, I am not my body, I am not my chitta, I am not my ahankara, I am not connected to anything. So these are all Vedantic teachings, and if you keep repeating this shloka, that is also a Vedantic meditation. Yeah, so the Vedantic meditation of the 6th chapter, Krishna covers in a few shlokas where okay, Suhrin Mitrar Yudasira Madhyastha Dveshya Bandhushu Sadhushvapi cha Papeshu Samabuddhir Visishate, 9th shloka. So here he says that for a meditator, it is very important to overcome a tendency to become emotional. Because when you sit for meditation, if you suddenly think of somebody whom you love or somebody whom you hate, that emotion will overtake all other priorities, and you will keep meditating on that love or hate person in your meditation, which is not what you're supposed to do. So you have to get your emotions under control. So the 9th shloka talks about the importance of samabuddhi. Samabuddhi means keeping your mind in an equanimous state. Okay, and similarly, you have to keep your mind away from all the desires and disappointments and worries and guilt and all those negative feelings also. So the mind has to be prepared before you even sit and meditate. So if let's say you want to meditate for 10 minutes, to keep your mind calm and collected for 10 minutes, you probably have to work for another 10 or 15 minutes to first clear your mind from all these other unwanted thoughts. So that preparation is what he's talking about in these shlokas. Okay. Then 12th shloka, Tatraikagram Manakritva Yata Chittendriya Kriya Upavishyasane Yunjati Yogam Atma Vishuddhaye. So here he is slowly getting into the actual act of meditation, where how you must sit. The next few shlokas talks about how your asana should be, or the seat, how the seat should be, how the posture should be, where should your eyes be focused, and all that. So in one of the shlokas he says that you have to try to focus your eyes to look at the tip of your nose. Okay, now that's a very difficult thing, but it's not a compulsory thing. Basically what it means is, if you keep your eyes completely open, you can be distracted by whatever is happening around you. And if you completely close your eyes, you may fall asleep. So you have to keep your eyes half open, half closed. And one of the techniques to do it is to try to look at the tip of your nose. But if you look at the tip of your nose for longer than 1 minute, your eyes will start paining. So you have to figure out some way which it will work for you, that you can keep your eyes half open, half closed, or keep it completely closed, but make sure you don't fall asleep. That is the lesson of that particular shloka. Okay. Then Manah sanyamya machitto yukta asita matparaha. 14th shloka, second line. So he says, finally you have to collect your mind and focus your mind on me. Matchittaha. So, matchittaha matparaha means here that matchittaha matparaha does not refer to Krishna as a personal God, but here that mat refers to Nirgunam Brahma, the teachings of Nirgunam Brahma, which is a Vedantic teaching. Okay. Then, what is important is there are some shlokas where the actual state of the meditator's mind is described. How will the mind of the meditator be like when the meditation is successful? So, in one of the shlokas, he says, imagine a lamp which is placed in a glass case. You know, this is not something that the Gita talks about. This is the way we explain the example. So, he talks about a deepam. A deepam is a lamp, and the flame of the lamp. And imagine the flame of the lamp is extremely steady. It is not disturbed by wind. So normally when the lamp is there, the flame will move a little bit. But imagine there is absolutely no wind or air or any disturbance of the air. The flame will be absolutely steady. And if you want to see how it works, you can put the lamp in a glass casing so that the lamp is protected from wind. Then you can see that the lamp's flame is very, very steady. So he says the mind of the meditator has to be as steady as the mind of the flame of that lamp, which is not moved by wind. That is one example. And then in another example, he says it is like, you know, when you have a can of oil and you transfer that oil to another vessel, see the way the oil will flow. The oil will flow in one continuous stream. There will be no break. If you pour water like that, the water will not fall in one uniform stream. The water will fall in droplets. So you can see a lot of breaks in the flow of the water. But when you transfer oil, the oil will have a thick stream like very cogent flow. And he says that the thought process of the meditator will be like that cogent, you know, I don't know what's the word in English for that. When the oil flows, it flows so meticulously without any bubbles, without any break. That kind of a flow the mind will have. Okay, where is that? I'll see which particular word he uses there. Okay. Yeto yeto nishcharati manas chanchalamasthiram tatastato niyamyatid atmanive vasham nayet. Upaiti shantarajasam brahma bhutamakalmasham सुखेन ब्रह्म संस्पर्शम अत शनै शनैरुपरमेत् बुद्ध्या धृतिगृहीतया. ओके योगो निर्विण्यचेतसः. ओके यस्मिन् स्थितो न दुःखेन गुरुणापि विचाल्यते तच्चलति तत्त्वतः. So that oil flow is called a dhara. No, I don't think that example comes here, but it comes in some other context, in some other Upanishad or somewhere. I just brought it here because it is relevant. So the dhara, tila dhara, it is in Sanskrit, it is called taila dhara, not tila dhara, taila dhara. So the flow, the stream of oil that flows cogently. So when you are doing Vedantic meditation, you have to make sure that your mind is not distracted by dissimilar thoughts. You know, in the Ashtanga Yoga, there is a beautiful definition for what is dhyanam. It is in Sanskrit, but I'll first give you the Sanskrit word and try to translate it for you. Sajatiya, yeah, that is the word, that is how it begins. Sajatiya pratyaya, okay. Vijatiya pratyaya anantarita sajatiya pratyaya pravaha. Vijatiya pratyaya anantarita sajatiya pratyaya pravaha is a Sanskrit definition. So what is Vijatiya and what is Sajatiya? So Sajatiya means similar and Vijatiya means dissimilar. And Pravaha, Pratyaya means thought. Pratyaya means thought. Pravaha means flow. So when you have a constant flow of similar thoughts without being interrupted by a dissimilar flow of thoughts, that is meditation. That is Vedantic meditation. Okay. So to tell you in practical terms, let's say somebody is meditating on Krishna form. Okay. Now you can actually meditate on Krishna's forehead for a minute, then Krishna's eyes for another minute, then Krishna's nose, Krishna's mouth, then Krishna's ears. You can keep moving from one part of the body to another, and while all the time you are focusing on the same Krishna image. That will be a Sajatiya Pratyaya Pravaha. Okay, but let's say your Krishna image has butter in one hand, or it has flute, and the moment you come to the butter, your mind starts thinking about, okay, I can make ghee from butter and I can make this kind of sweet from ghee. If your mind takes a diversion from the butter, that is Vijatiya Pratyaya. Or similarly, after looking at the flute, suddenly you remember some concert where you heard a particular song being played on the flute, and then your mind wanders to that concert and from there goes somewhere else. That is a Vijatiya Pratyaya Pravaha. So as long as your thought flow is restricted to that Krishna image from top to toe, that will be considered as a Krishna meditation. Similarly, when you are doing Vedantic meditation, as long as your flow of thoughts, because you cannot repeat the same sentence for a very long time because your mind will start wandering. So it's always a good practice to have some 4 or 5 sentences or 4 or 5 shlokas and slowly move from one to another, come back to the same 1 2 3 4 5, again 1 2 3 4 5. If you keep doing that, that is a good Sajatiya Pratyaya Pravaha or flow of similar thoughts. Okay, so this is one kind of a hint or tip that Krishna gives in the 6th chapter. Okay, so I think we have kind of exceeded our time. I will stop here. If there are any questions, we can talk. Otherwise, we'll continue the 6th chapter next week. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Shwetamriji.
Sir, you explained in detail about this meditation. This I find really interesting. Is there any detailed method of how to worship the Saguna form of God? Because in 12th chapter you were saying we always tend to worship the Saguna form, but we do it the way you said, dhoop, aarti, and everything else. But is there in anywhere in Upanishad or in Gita, how is the right method, or maybe how is the good method to worship Saguna form of God?
See, the worship of Saguna form of God is not covered in the Upanishad or Gita, but it is covered elaborately in what we call Puja Paddhati. Okay, and again, the Puja Paddhati will vary from form to form. So the way you worship Shiva will be a little different from the way you worship Vishnu, which will be different from the way you worship, say, Durga or Ganesha or Subramanya. So you have to go to a particular Paddhati book. Nowadays you have a lot of these books available. I don't know how it works in the Marathi circle, but if you come to Chennai, Tamil Nadu, you have a lot of book shops which specialize in giving all these puja specific books, and you can
Yes,
read
yes.
it and understand how to do it.
Yes, those books are also available in Marathi. But then my question is, so it doesn't matter in as per as Gita or Upanishad, it doesn't matter in which form you do the puja paddhati.
No.
What important is that you perform this puja paddhati and you worship
Yes.
the saguna form.
Correct. So
Okay.
what
Okay.
you offer externally to the Lord is not so important. What is important is your state of the mind when you do it. Okay. Somewhere in
Okay,
Gita
sir.
itself, in either in the 7th or 9th chapter, the Bhagavan says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhakti pahridam ashnami prayatatmanaha. That means you can offer me one flower, or you can offer me one spoon of water or one spoon of milk. That is enough. What you offer is not important. How you offer, with what kind of an attitude you offer, is what is important. Okay. And
Okay, sir.
in any case, the worship of all these saguna forms is only an intermediary step. From the saguna
Yes.
form, from the ekarupa form, you have to eventually move on to Vishwarupa worship, and from Vishwarupa worship, you have to eventually come to Nirguna worship.
Yes, sir. That's why my question. So it shouldn't be that my aim is to reach to the last stage where nirguna form of the God. But before that, if I'm stuck in worshipping the saguna form of the God in the wrong way, then I'll be stuck always in this form. That
No,
should not happen. That
no, no,
was
no,
my
no. See,
concern.
you don't have to worry about worshipping in the wrong form, because really speaking, there is no wrong form as long as your worship is not, in exchange for some material benefits. As
Okay,
long
sir.
as your worship is to, request or pray to the Lord that please take me to the next stage, nothing is wrong.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Then I had only one more question, but I think I'll ask it for the next time.
Yeah, we'll finish with Shubhu and Subhashini. Maybe
Yes.
you can ask after that. Shubhuji, what's your question?
Yes, I just have a question considering something that's not very clear to me, because is there a kind of a hierarchy in the different various supreme beings, godheads, and so on that we have and that we worship? The reason that I ask is basically he says that I am the ultimate supreme being, and all manifestations of me, all other supreme beings are part of my form.
Mhm.
So, is there is there a different level in all these other supreme beings? Because
Okay.
basically, we always worship. I mean, in our pujas or in our little whatever we have, the shrines, we always worship different gods
Mhm.
usually, and Krishna is one part of them. He is
Yeah.
not above them. So, especially when he talks about it in the 9th chapter, if you go to the 9th chapter and number 7, the text,
Mhm.
what he says, Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya,
Mhm.
Prakritim Yanti,
Mamikam.
exactly, and
Kalpakaye punastani kalpado visrajamiham.
exactly. So they all basically submerge into him. That's the way
No,
I
but
understood it.
there, the Sarva Bhutani is not referring to Devatas.
Oh,
There it means all the creations,
okay,
all the
okay,
jivas. That Sarva Bhutani there refers to the universe.
okay, okay. But
Yeah.
what about the other gods? I mean, he
See,
talks also about Brahma living for so many hundreds of years, and then
yeah.
so Brahma is a god, obviously.
Yeah. See, I suggest you reserve this question for one of the future sessions, because
Okay.
this will require a fairly elaborate answer, because there are multiple dimensions involved in answering this question. But the short answer is the common devatas that we worship in the normal practice, like Ganesha, Subramanya, Shiva, Rama, Krishna, Devi, Durga, even Anjaneya, Narasimha, all of them are at an equal level. There is no taratamyam, there is no upgrade, downgrade among them. Okay, so they are all at the same level. But in the 17th chapter, actually, Krishna says the Sattvic people worship certain types of deities, the Rajasic people worship certain other deities, and the Tamasic people worship some other forms. So that is the 17th chapter discussion, which we'll cover in some other context. But most of the devatas that we worship commonly, they're all Sattvic.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, Subhashini ma'am.
Sir, quickly I'll put the question. So I was interested in the meditation, Vedantic meditation that you mentioned about repeating the shloka, 5 or 6 shlokas, and coming back to the first also. So I want to know how different it is from meditation, from doing a meditation from nama meditation, the first thing, and how is a bridge, where is a bridge to Nirguna Brahma here? The mind is still counting on the shlokas and it is still rooted on to the meaning of it probably and onto the teaching.
Correct.
Now, where is the bridge to the Nirguna Brahman?
See, the content of the shloka points to Nirguna Brahman.
Okay.
Okay, the content of the shloka, you are not saying Shantakaram Bhujagasayanam. Okay. So if you are meditating on Shantakaram Bhujagasayanam, that is not Vedantic meditation.
No, Mahavakyams.
Okay, Mahavakyam, the content of the Mahavakyam is Nirgunam Brahma teaching. Okay. And the shloka rotation is more to keep your mind occupied. See, what happens is when you want to keep the mind still, that is when the mind will want to wander.
Okay.
You know, it is like, trying to hold a child and making the child sit in one place. The child cannot sit in one place. The child will keep moving around. So that is why you give the child 1 or 2 toys and ask the child to play with the toys. So the child's focus is shifted to toys, and then the child sits in one place for a long time. So the giving the shlokas is like giving the toys to the child. Okay. And how is it different from chanting shlokas like Shantakaram Bhujagasayanam? When you do Saguna Brahma Dhyanam, you still have the idea that I am different from God, God is different from me. There is a gap. Okay. Whereas in Nirguna Dhyanam, the message itself is that I am not away from the Lord. I am not away from Ishvara. Ishvara is in my inside. In fact, I am not different from Ishvara. That's ultimate teaching. And all the Vedantic meditations are done with that mindset.
So it's like a reminder to tell yourself that it is not what about the worldly things, and it's actually about the Atman. So this is what you
exactly.
Fine. Beautiful.
Exactly.
Thank you, sir.
Beautiful. See, you cannot objectify your Atma. So all that you can do is you can repeat some of the shlokas where the image of the Atma is communicated to you, and thereby you focus on the Atma.
Perfect. Super. Thank you, sir. I like that Taila Dhara, that concept. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
So I think Shwetambriji had a question which was hanging. So do you want to ask?
Yes, sir. It was again related to the meditation. You said somewhere that meditation, no, in the 6th chapter, you said the meditation, while meditating, the meditator should focus on the shlokas of Veda.
No, not Veda.
No,
Upanishads or Vedanta. Vedanta.
Okay, Upanishads or Vedanta. And then you said that the mind should not even desire anything. You gave one example of when you love somebody or when you hate somebody, and then you have this emotion, this emotion, and you think of this emotion, you get stuck into this emotion, and you will start concentrating or you will start meditating on that emotion. And this should not
on
happen.
that person.
On that person. Then desiring for God, is that also a desire?
No, there are good desires and there are not so good desires. Okay. So without the desire for moksha, you will not be attending these sessions. Okay. So desire by itself is not bad. What you desire for and why do you desire is the question to be answered. Okay. If you have desire for liberation and moksha, if you have the desire to understand Ishvara, that is a desire that you have to pursue. Okay, that is not a materialistic desire, and that is therefore a good desire.
Okay, and then it is not wrong if I think of this desire while I meditate.
Yeah, because you are meditating exactly because you are driven by the desire, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Great.
Thank you, sir.
So if anybody else has questions, please write them down and we'll talk about it next week. We'll close now. We'll chant the closing prayers. Om Purnamad पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु सर्वेऽपि सुखिनः सन्तु सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Right. Thank you so much. Good night.